Hey guys, it's the Warhipster here. Now, what you're about to see is about 95% of the full tutorial for Kyganil. Now, the reason for this is that the first two coats of paint that I put on, which were in fact Akhelian Green and Black Templar, when I was filming those pieces of footage, my phone actually decided that rather than do it normally, it wanted to do it as slow-mo capture. Now, what this means is it means those two clips are actually unusable, so I can't put them into the tutorial for you. But the good news is you've not missed much. It's not like I accidentally filmed the painting of the diamonds in as slow-mo and therefore the whole point of the tutorial is completely ruined. So I would like to apologize, and I hope you enjoy watching what is 95% of a full tutorial for Kyganil using contrast paints and various other techniques. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching. Let's roll the tape. With that Black Templar applied, what we want to do is we want to add some thinned down Russ Grey. And now this is just going to be as a highlight along all of the sharp edges of all of that cloth. So just want to pick out all of these details. Like this. And then next up we want to use some thinned down Russ Grey. Not Russ Grey, Fenrisian Grey. To just repeat that process and just add a tiny little spot highlight where the sharpest edges meet each other. With that, all of the black is now complete. So the colour we're going to move on to is, before we do the diamonds, we're actually just going to paint in the rest of the kind of base coats around the central reservation of the miniature. And what we want to do is we want to work on all the sort of burgundy colours. And so the colour we're going to use for this is Volupus Pink. So this includes like the interior of the coat and also this long tabard here. So we just want to make contact with the model and pull this Volupus Pink down. And next up, once all that Volupus Pink is dry, we're going to take some Blood Angels Red and we're going to give this, all of this Volupus Pink a coat of it. But what we want to try and do is avoid the sharpest edges so that we establish our highlights. So we take the Blood Angels Red. And just apply it like that. And once that Blood Angel's red, we want to take a small amount of Flesh Terror's red. We just want to run it down the darkest recesses of all of that cloth. And with that done, we now want to colour in the leg and the right side of his chest. And the colour for this we are going to use is Akhelian Green. And once that Akhelian Green is dry, we're going to use some thinned down Baharroth Blue to apply a highlight to all of those hard edges. And next up, we're going to use a small amount of Blood Angel's Red just to cover in the wraps around his legs, tying the weapon, I think it's a Harlequin's kiss, to his leg. And next up, we're going to use some Wyldwood to colour in this device here. And don't worry if you get this all over the trim, because we're going to cover over that with some Retributor Armour, so it doesn't matter too much at this stage. And with that done, we now want to paint in all the gold details, and for this we are going to use Retributor Armour. And next up, we want to give all the silver details a layer of Iron Warriors. And next up, we want to give all that gold a shade of Aggaros Dunes. And next up, we want to give that silver a shade of Basilicanum Grey. With that shading applied, we're now just going to fill in a couple more base colours before we do the final highlights and things. And the first colour we're going to use is Blood Angel's Red, and this is just for the hand grips on the swords. Once that's dry, we're going to use some Skeleton Horde for his hair and also for his Shinobi prosthetic for all you Sekiro fans out there. And we're going to use some Skeleton Horde for this. And we just want to not use very much. That's actually too much on my brush at once. And we just want to colour this in and give it this nice kind of bone tone. I'm a poet. I just didn't know it. And with those bone details done, we're going to use some Guilliman Flesh for the face. So what we want to do is we just want to, in as few brush strokes as possible, and I want to start up, it's too much paint, I want to start up here by the brow, make contact with the model, and just pull this Guilliman Flesh down. And now it's time to do some highlights. So the first colour we're going to do is we're going to do some Flayed One Flesh highlights, and this is for all the skin. So what we want to do is we're going to take our Flayed One Flesh, and then we just want to very carefully highlight the raised details of the face. And next up, we want to use some Screaming Skull, and we're going to do this on 3 different sections. We're going to use the Screaming Skull to highlight the hair. We're going to use it to highlight this bone gauntlet, and we're also going to use it to do the eye. And we'll do the eye last, because all we need is a teeny tiny dot of that. But we just want to highlight all the kind of strands of the hair like this. Similarly for the gauntlet. We want to colour in that gemstone, and then we want to do an edge highlight. And then for the eye, we want to use a teeny tiny dot. And next up, before we do the pupil, we're going to highlight all of the gold. And so we're going to be using Liberator Gold for this. And one thing to bear in mind is that when you do this, just add this Liberator Gold to the tops of the gems as well, like this. Because when we add our red, we're going to do it over there and we'll get a nice shining gleaming effect. Otherwise, we just want to do a nice edge highlight across all of the gold details like this. And with that gold highlighted, we're now going to highlight the silver, and for this we're going to be using some Iron Hand steel. So what we want to do on the blades is we just want to run an edge highlighter across the top of the blade like this. All the way down. But then for the flat of the sharp part of the blade, we just kind of want to colour in that whole area. Kind of like that, so you get this nice dark to bright transition. And next up, we're finally going to use a small dot of black Templar just for the pupil. And next up, we're going to use some Flesh Tearers Red, and this is for the gem. And what we want to do is we want to make contact with it at the bottom and then just pull it all the way up and then round again, just making sure that we've got all of those gems covered. And next up, we're going to use some thinned down Warboss Green to do all of those diamond patterns. And so what we want to do is we basically just want to use this Warboss Green to effectively draw out a grid pattern like this. And once you've got your grid established, you just block in the diamonds that you want to be green. Like that. And with those diamonds established all around the model, we're now going to use some Straken Green as a small highlight. And you just want to kind of do this on the diagonal lines. Like that kind of thing. And with that, Kyganil is pretty much finished. What we do need to do though is we do need the base, and when we do the base we're going to create a glaze which we're going to put all over it after we've done all of the block colours, and the same glaze will be applied over the diamonds. So if they look a little bit stark now, don't worry, because they are going to be brought down just a tad. So when painting the base we're going to use a couple of colours, but the first one we're going to use is Flesh Tearer's Red, and we just want to pick out individual squares, kind of starting around about here. And just getting this Flesh Tearer's Red all over. Like so. And next up we want to use some Terradon Turquoise to colour in all of the tiles that are closest to Kyganil, but not like these kind of extreme ones at the ends. So we just want to kind of use this Terradon Turquoise on, like, for example, on this one here. And once that Terradon Turquoise is dry, we're then going to use some Akhelian Green for all the remaining squares. And next up we're going to use some Leviadon Blue, and this is just to paint in some small tiny tiles on some of these other squares that we've got here. So we just want to basically just use our freehand skills to use a small amount of Leviadon Blue. To effectively just paint in some squares like this. And once that's done, we want to create a roughly 10:1 mix of contrast medium and Terradon Turquoise. And we're going to use this as a final glaze over all of these kind of mysterious bits. So we just want to kind of very gently put this all over all of that red, the turquoise, the Akhelian Green, like this. But we also want to use this same glaze over the green diamonds that we've painted on his jacket. As well as over the rest of the black details, just to blend those highlights in. And then we want to give all those tiles a very light dry brush of Etherium Blue. And as you can see, I've finished off the base, and if you'd like to see how I did this, you can watch the F-Rail Stern video, or you can watch the How to Paint Ahriman. I really like this model. I think it's just, again, much like with the rest of Pariah, it's just so full of character, and it's really great fun to use some different techniques to achieve that classic Harlequin look. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that great stuff. I love reading your comments and I love your feedback, and I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next one.